Alberta Premier Jason Kenney continued to face political turbulence among his own ranks this week, and it came to a head with the expulsion from his caucus on Thursday night of two of his MLAs. Todd Loewen and Drew Barnes had both been critical of Kenney's leadership, and Loewen called publicly for Mr. Kenney to resign. Loewen was also among 16 other members of caucus who signed an open letter last month, publicly disagreeing with Premier Kenney's handling of the new public health restrictions. I'm joined now by the newly independent MLA, Todd Loewen. Mr. Loewen, first of all, thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, I want to ask, last night it was supposedly, by all accounts, a very long caucus meeting where they decided they voted the two of you out. When you resigned as caucus chair and then wrote your open letter calling for the Premier to step down, I imagine you might have expected this outcome that you saw last night.
Yes, obviously it was obviously a possible outcome. I knew that going into that letter that this could be a possible result, and that was just. I still felt I had to do the letter. I still felt I had to represent my constituents and many Albertans that have lost trust in the Premier. Okay,
well, let's get to that. In your letter, you called when you asked Premier Kenney to step down, you called the Premier's government out of touch and arrogant with contradictory, confusing, and needlessly inflammatory messaging. What was going wrong? What was the problem?
No, it just was consistently we were coming up with this decisions and plans that would all of a sudden change because of public outcry. And we obviously had different things going on there that were causing issues. Particularly in the last week, we had two canceled caucus meetings, and we, in the situation that we're in now in government, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of critical issues, and the canceled caucus meetings, when there were so many critical issues going on, that is the time for caucus members to speak their mind and be able to hear government direction and possibly have influence on government direction. Represent their constituents too.
Yeah. In your letter, you criticized Premier Kenney's dealings with Ottawa, but you also criticized how he dealt with the pandemic measures. What was it about the measures that annoyed you, about his way of dealing with the pandemic measures?
Well, I think what the problem with the pandemic measures is there was a lot of confusing messaging going on. But this really wasn't about the COVID or the restrictions that the government was putting in. This was about leadership in our province here in Alberta, and about the Premier's lack of leadership and the lack of trust that Albertans have with this leader. Overwhelmingly, the constituents that I talked to and the people I talked to have lost trust in the Premier, lost trust in this government. And obviously we need a drastic change to get things back on track, and that's why I took such drastic action.
When you were one of the 16 people, the 16 MLAs who signed that open letter opposing Premier Kenney's health measures about a month ago, he's since brought in even more severe measures, more stricter restrictions. The infection rates have continued to go up. The 16 of you, though, took issue with him imposing those measures and said that they shouldn't be imposed, for example, in rural regions, and shouldn't be imposed across the board. Do you possibly feel that, given that the infection rates continued to go up, and he's now since brought in some even more stringent measures, that opposition might have been misguided? Have you rethought your opposition to the measures?
No, obviously what had happened there, and if you read the letter, you'll see that the situation was that the government had come up with guidelines and levels and numbers that to give Albertans an idea of what direction the government would head at different points. But they didn't follow through with that. And that's what that letter was about. It was about the government not following through on its commitment to Albertans and to small business owners who make plans based on what they're told by government. And that was the situation. And obviously this situation we're in now is about leadership. It's about a myriad of things that this leader has done. He's obviously created a lot of confusion with a lot of different issues. And of course, he's very unpopular right now in Alberta. His polling is in the tanks, and in order for us to form government again in 2023, this party needs a drastic change.
I want to ask you that. There's a quote that you had, I think, last night to media, and you said that you did this because everywhere you turned and everyone you spoke to said you are not going to get reelected with Jason Kenney as a leader. We won't vote UCP if Jason Kenney is still the Premier. Is that part of your decision, that this was just you had no choice and this was a good time to get out?
Yeah, obviously that's what I hear over and over again, is that people will not vote UCP with this leader that we have now. And this is a situation where they shot the messenger. I was the messenger. I was bringing forward what Albertans are telling me, what Albertans are telling Bolster, what Albertans are telling their neighbors. And this is a situation where I brought these concerns forward in caucus. I've brought them forward regularly, and others have brought forward too. And obviously now, since I brought it forward publicly like this was a situation where they decided they were going to shoot the messenger instead of listening to the message and dealing with the issues that are at hand.
Do you think there are other United Conservative Party MLAs who might follow your path, or are they now biting their tongues, and have they now all been whipped into line after yours and Drew Barnes' expulsions?
I won't speak on behalf of any of my colleagues. They will make decisions based on what they feel is right for themselves and their constituents. But obviously, you could tell by the length of the meeting that it wasn't just a slam dunk that me and Drew were removed from caucus. There was a lot of discussion on both sides, and there's still a lot of support in caucus for myself and for Drew too. And obviously, the situation needs to be dealt with. Obviously, leadership is an issue. The Premier could subject himself to a leadership review, but he's failed to do that, or at minimum put it off so long that it doesn't make sense for the party.
And when the leader, no doubt, probably said to you, at least on one occasion, look, this is a team sport here. Stick with the gang. We have two years to go until the election. Things will get better. You just don't accept that.
No, obviously there's been lots of discussion we've heard the word team a lot, but we haven't seen much of a team. We see a lot of animosity and a lot of calling people out and disregarding people's opinions within caucus by this leader. It happened in a meeting yesterday even, and it's obviously that's not a way to build a team. I think the Premier, we've all asked multiple times for caucus to talk about unity and talk about how we can be together as a team and how we can work together for the common good of Alberta. But it seems like at every opportunity to do that, the Premier just pushes it away and says he doesn't want to discuss that.
Okay, well, Todd Loewen, I want to thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you for speaking with us.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it, and have a great day.